This number 5, it's remarkable the amount of times that it comes up in the history of the Jewish people during different eras when it was necessary to start rebuilding. You find this pattern of 5 students that are able to pick things up and start anew from the ashes. The 5 students of Rabbi Akiva, after his student body was decimated by a plague, there were 5 students, the Talmud tells us, that were able to start anew, and they brought the Torah back. A couple generations before, you have the 5 students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he was the leader of the Jewish people at the time of the destruction of the temple. And the Mishnah Avos says, Chamisha Talmidim hayu lo Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 students. And it's clear that he had more than 5 students. He was a teacher in Yavne, which was like the first yeshiva, for 40 years. He had more than 5 students. But these 5 students were the ones who spearheaded the transition that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai oversaw. There was a change that was going on in the Jewish people from a religion that was based in the temple to one that was based in the Beis Medrash, in the study hall. And these 5 students lay the foundation for that development. The Mishnah in Avos tells us that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai would be misaper, would be monesh vacham. He would count the merits and the special attributes that each of these people had. If we assume that each of them played a special role in the foundation of the continuing study of Torah among the Jewish people, it's fair to assume that the attributes that he's describing are the attributes that are critical for them to play that role. So these 5 students were Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, Rabbi Yoshua ben Hanania, Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, Rabbi Shimon ben Nesanel, and Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. The attributes that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai spoke about for each of them are very telling. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, he said, was a bor sud she'eno ma'abid tipa, a cistern of water that doesn't lose a drop. That sounds like he had a photographic memory, which is a very critical thing to be able to go on with Torah. This is in the era that Torah Bal Shebal Peh, the oral law, was still transmitted orally, so the ability to remember things is obviously a very critical quality. The thing is, if we're right that he's talking about what made him special as a conveyor of Torah to the world, he wants to describe the midah, the attribute that he had. What attribute is being described by the fact that he had a great memory? I think that it was more than that he had a great memory. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus took responsibility. He wanted to make sure that the Torah that he learned was intact, that no drop of it was lost. He took achrayus, he took responsibility for his role as a conveyor of Torah. And it was that attribute that was the midah that allowed him to be one of this great 5. Rabbi Shua ben Hanania, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said about him, Ashrei Yoladato. Fortunate is the mother that gave birth to him. Which sounds like a general compliment, that when he's such a great person, he had such wonderful midos, that his mother is fortunate for having given birth to him. But what's he really telling us? This language, Ashrei Yoladato, Ashrei, we find in another Gemara in Yuma. The Gemara in Yuma talks about a person's obligation to make Hashem beloved unto other people. Yahavta es Hashem Elokecha doesn't just mean that a person should love God, but that a person should make God beloved in the eyes of the world. And it says that if a person studies Torah and treats people nicely and has an appropriate manner with other people, people will say, Ashrei Mishalom do Torah. Fortunate is the person who taught this person Torah, because that's what made him into such a mensch. So this idea of Ashrei Yoladto means, according to this, that a person, that people look at them and they feel a sense of closeness and an appreciation of God through this person's midos, through this person's personal attributes, a person who serves as a Kiddush Hashem, a sanctification of God's name, that's the second critical midah that's necessary in order to serve as a foundation for building Torah. Rabbi Yossi HaKohen was a chassid. A chassid is a hard word to translate, but it's definitely associated with the midah of chesed. Chesed always implies doing more than what's required. When a person gives with a thought of getting something in return, they're not giving more than they're getting. That's not chesed. Chesed is always the act of giving out of a desire to give of oneself. In order for a person to be able to spread Torah and to be a foundation for the building of Torah, the person has to be a nurturer, a giver, and not a taker. Shimon ben Nisanel was Yirei Chet. He feared sin. Fearing sin, what is the fearing of sin, I think, is a general description of a person who respects tradition, a person who respects other people, and therefore they show restraint, and they are Yirei Chet. So in order to be a foundation for developing Torah, a person needs to be a person who conveys respect. Rav Elazar ben Arach was a Mayan HaMiskaber. A Mayan HaMiskaber means a fountainhead, a well that constantly reinvigorates and regenerates itself. And that refers to, as a contrast to the Yirei Chet, which is restraint, that refers to the idea of a person being creative energy, constantly flowing forth. So if you think about it, what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is saying is that the 5 attributes that it takes in order for a person, for people, to be able to lay a foundation upon which Torah can then be developed for generations are these foundations. A person needs to feel a sense of achrayus, responsibility. They have to be sensitive to the impression that their actions have on other people and the impact that what they do might have on another person's sense of the sanctification of God's name. They have to be a giver, a nurturer. They have to have respect. They have to value other people's rights and needs and opinions. And they also have to be creative and energetic, with a sprouting forth and springing forth of ideas and energy. The 5 young men who joined our kollel all embody all of these attributes. They all have a great level of responsibility and achrayus. They all take responsibility for making a difference in the communities that they're part of. They're all people who care about Kiddush Shem Shemayim. They care about sanctifying God's name through their actions. They're sensitive to what the appearance is and how the impression that they make reflects on Hashem. They're givers, nurturers. They're people who convey respect to the people that they come in contact with, and they're creative and talented. They all have all of these attributes. But if I had to try to appreciate each of them, I would say, going back to our time together when we learned together and studied across the street in Ner HaMizrach, that Jacob was undergoing construction at the time, I would say that Michal Alterman really personifies the idea of achrayus. He's always a person who you can count on, a person who takes responsibilities very, very seriously. He's like the Bar Sud She'eno Ma'aved Tipa, who makes sure that nothing is lost and that everything that's expected of him is actually fulfilled. He and his wife, whether here or in San Diego, have made a tremendous impact. And in whatever they do, you see this sense of achrayus, responsibility for the congregation, for the tzibur. The Freundlichs, for all of you in Bet Jacob who know them, are a family that cares very, very deeply about conveying Kiddush Hashem. They care that everyone should be comfortable, that things should be perfect, that the image that they're conveying is one that reflects beautifully on Hashem. The midos, which are associated with Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya, who is the person who is Ashrei Yoladato, the midos that are necessary for people to be gladdened by their contact, they embody and they have. I think the Freundlichs represent this commitment to Kiddush Shem Shemayim, that people's reaction is Ashrei Yoladato. Lucky are the people who gave birth to them. Yossi HaKohen, we said, was a chassid. That midah, the midah of chassid, the midah of giving and nurturing, we really see very much expressed by our Rebbe, Rabbi Naftali Estreicher. I enjoy watching Rabbi Estreicher interact with the boys, with his students. You could watch how he looks them straight in the eye, and they get a sense that everything that Rabbi Estreicher has, his time, his emotions, his energy, his commitment, he's willing to give to them, to make them successful. He and his wife opened their house for the boys. They always know that they can go there. They're nurturers, they're givers, they're chassidim. Shimon ben Nisanel, we said, was a yirei chet, the idea of respect and restraint. Whenever we had a question in a discussion, among the many discussions that we had about how things should be, we always turned to Naftali Weintraub, who had a sense of tradition. He had a sense of respect for how things are supposed to be. A very meticulous person, a person who's careful but creative at the same time. He exemplified this midah of yirei chet, respect and constraint. Rabbi Achmiel Garfield, who we had the benefit of his involvement in the yeshiva for so many years, is truly a mayan hamiskaber, a creative source. He's an ebullient person filled with energy, which he directs to the benefit of his students. I personally learned a great deal from Rabbi Garfield about chinuch. I've learned how to treat students with respect and how to be upbeat. Rabbi Garfield had this special power of influencing his environment. And when he was up, the entire environment was up. When he was having a down day, the entire environment was down. Truly a mayan hamiskaber, a wellspring of creativity and energy, impacting everything that's around him. These wonderful couples really left an imprint on the yeshiva. To this day, I can tell you that there are traditions and attitudes that they've developed that are really still expressed within the walls of the yeshiva. There are really 5 pillars upon which the edifice of the yeshiva stands today. I'd like everyone to please let us give tribute to these 5 couples and appreciate them for the Kiddush Hashem, the sanctification of Hashem's name that they make with their work and with their lives.
Thank you very much, and well deserved.